Recording in progress.
All right, the time is now 7 o'clock. I call to order our city council meeting here for Monday, December 2nd, 2024. And for all of you that are able to stand up for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Roll call.
Councilmember Rounds,
Here.
Councilmember Burke,
Here.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Here.
Councilmember Hall,
Here.
Councilmember Freimark,
Here.
Councilmember Houston,
Here.
Councilmember Friend,
Here.
Mayor Deinhardt.
Here. All right, with that, we will move into citizen communications for items not on the agenda. First one is Mr. Pettit. Come on up, Rick.
Hey guys, guess what I'm going to talk about? I own Remnant Farms Feed and Supply. I've opened the store June 1st, 2005, so this next June will be 20 years. The attack of August 1st, 2023 has devastated my store. What I mean by that is the road construction where they decided to shut the whole road down curb to curb for 3 months. Not only attacked my store, but it attacked four other local businesses that have been here for a long time. Contrary to what people have been told, I have filed 2 claims and I was turned over to the insurance companies for the city and the construction company. It takes me back to a time when I was a kid and a big bully put his hand on my forehead and I was swinging at him, but he held me far enough away I couldn't make any contact. That's how I feel with the insurance companies. I was bullied, I was shoved aside like garbage, and they made it so that I could not present my case or stand up for myself. They told me if I wanted to spend $25,000 minimum to hire a forensic accountant, they might look at my stuff. This whole thing started a financial avalanche that will most likely cause me to go out of business if someone doesn't step in soon. I've already dropped from 4 employees down to 2. I've been bullied most of my early life, but I did not expect the local government I thought was here to protect and serve me to wrongfully injure my business and not make it right. I noticed that the city can manage to fund Severance Gate and the shed by the library, but they can't make things right with small businesses that were damaged due to public error of judgment. I'm here once again to ask the city council to step in and do something for me and for 4 other small businesses on Scott Avenue that were damaged by this mess. And I would note that the person that thought this whole thing up was rewarded by a nice public works manager job in the center. So where's the right and all that? Any questions?
So can I ask a question, Rick? You and I haven't talked for probably several months here. So I reached out to, and I was trying to find my notes in here and it's not in this book. I reached out to the insurance carrier. Again, we've met with the project managers, and I have the names of those people that we met with, the city did, because I did pull together Gray and Osborne, the project manager, AES constructor, our inspector, and the team here to find out and get information. I reached out to the insurance carrier, and the insurance carrier says, quote unquote, the project or the claim is closed. And I said, well, wait a minute, what does closed mean? And they said, well, it's closed in the sense they can't move forward, they can't do anything until they have proof of loss from you. And so,
well, the way they wanted me to prove loss was to go bankrupt trying to hire an attorney and a accountant to prove that I lost stuff, but to a common sense sentient individual, you can look at my numbers and tell day by day since months before that there was a definite drop in my business once they hit me. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out, but you know, a little feed store in Woodland who has a tough enough time just making a go of it nowadays, and then have the city kind of sit right on your head and laugh at you. It's not funny. And I have no recourse but to come talk to you guys once in a while and see if you guys are willing to lose the only feed store in 10, 15 miles. That's where we're at right now. The other day I drove to Western World in Longview to buy feed with the cash I had in my pocket just so I could have some feed to sell my customers. That's how bad it's gotten. I used to be a proud business here in this town, and we did a lot of good business for people. But right now I'm like a homeless person looking for scraps and dumpsters to have dinner, business-wise.
What do you have the number that you think you lost?
Well, I've told them before about $250,000. Which, strangely enough, I think is the amount you paid a certain public works director for doing a great job. Which it makes me sick. Any other questions?
Questions, comments? Okay. Keith?
Good evening. Planners Days 2025, 103rd Planners Days, June 19th through the 22nd. The theme this year has been chosen. It's Legacies and Generations. So I'll launch the art contest tomorrow. The parents will have to go online and click on it and download the paper, because we put them in the schools last few years and get very few of them back. So it costs a lot for that paper and all the work to go through that. So we're just going to do it online now. But if anybody needs a printout of it or whatever, they can get a hold of me or come and see us at the visitor center. I'll print them one out. The art contest, of course, follows the theme Legacies and Generations. And hopefully we can get some good artwork that might talk about some of the families here in town or some of the things that happened that kind of created a legacy for this town. The art contest will end February 1st, and the applications for Royal Court contestants went into the high school today. So hope we get a whole bunch of entrants for that. It's always fun finding out who's gonna be in our Royal Court. Any questions?
And what's the deadline on the Royal Court for individuals to?
I think it's the end of the month.
End of the month. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any questions?
The 24th, like day before Christmas. Yeah. So hopefully they won't wait around, and they'll fill them out. Really go for it. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Thank you, Keith. Anyone else from the audience about items not on the agenda? Come on up.
Hi there, my name is Sam Brown, and I am representing the WHS AP Government class, and I'm here to talk to you all again about our event Civic Power Hour that will be held on December 11th from 6:30 to 7:30 in the WHS Commons. During this event, we will be discussing zoning and housing. Currently, as a class, we are in the process of learning more about zoning laws and competitive values associated with housing needs. We will also be writing questions for our panel, working more on marketing by putting posters in small businesses, and staging for our event. We've mostly worked out our panel, and that's consisting of Mayor Deinhardt, Travis Goddard from the city, and citizen Donner Butler. Our teacher, Ms. Condit, is also still finishing up panel invitations, so you may see a few more familiar faces on the panel. This event is being entirely facilitated and moderated by our WHS AP Government students. We will ask the panel questions for the first 30 minutes, and during the second 30 minutes, we will have a community Q&A where folks in the audience can ask the panel questions. Again, this event is next Wednesday, December 11th in the WHS Commons, and we encourage everyone to attend.
I appreciate you coming, Sarah. That was very well done. Question for you. Did I hear you correctly that other panelists could be added?
Yeah, we have a couple people in mind, but Ms. Condit is organizing the first panel. We will do it from here on out.
We're on the same page.
Okay.
I've misconduct and I've had a little bit of dialect.
Okay. Awesome.
So, yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure that was.
Mhm.
And again, that's Tuesday night, the 11th.
Wednesday night, the
sorry,
11th, yes.
Yep. A week from this Wednesday
Mhm.
at the high school. Great opportunity. Look forward.
but I'm not sure.
Yep. Love for the community members, people to be there.
Mhm.
A little plug. They did the mayor's debate last year, and I would estimate there was probably about 100 to 150 people there. It would be great for something like this, for people to come, participate, and be part of the conversation. So, awesome.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Sarah.
My name's Sam.
I mean, Sam. Sorry, I don't know where I got Sarah, but Sam. Any questions or comments for her? Any other questions or comments for anyone in the audience?
6:30 to 7:30.
Any other questions or anything else not on the agenda? Anyone online?
I'd like to speak, if I may.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Thank you. For weeks, I've been listening to the city council meeting and coming to the city council meeting, waiting to hear the results of the investigation about Gabe, whether he lived in the city limits or did not live in the city limits during the time of his seat on the city council. And I haven't heard of anything, and I think we're in the avenue of full disclosure, and I certainly would like to have an opportunity to ask Gabe and the mayor and the city council a few questions about this in the upcoming meetings. And I propose that maybe we could put on the agenda that we have full disclosure about this and what was the outcome, what was the decision, and where do we go from here. I'm speaking as a resident of Woodland. I'm speaking as a person who heads HOAs. I'm speaking as a person who gets a lot of questions because of my exposure in the city. And I sure would like to know if we could put this to bed one way or the other. Thank you for allowing me to speak my concerns and to propose my wish to put this on an agenda or a workshop or something in the future, probably in January, where we can go forward freely one way or the other on this matter. Thank you.
Hey, Meg.
Yeah?
So I don't know that it would be something that would be a workshop or a agenda item. I mean, I'm open to having a dialogue and conversation. This is where, citizens can have dialogue and conversation. Emily is also on here. I would welcome Gabe to freely speak, as long as we're respectful and here in order. But Emily, do you want to touch on what we sent and what we received back on that piece?
From the county prosecutor's office?
Yes, please.
Sure. So we sent an inquiry to the Cowlitz County prosecutor in September, as the county prosecutor is the only one that has the authority to bring any sort of action as to whether or not a council seat is vacant due to residency concerns. So we sent that explaining the situation, what had been said on record, the lease agreements that Councilmember Huston had provided, and asked the county prosecutor whether or not there was evidence to move forward with a quo warranto action, which is what would have declared whether or not he was a valid resident. The prosecutor wrote us back and said that they did not have enough information, that if the city wanted to conduct a full investigation into all aspects of that and present the case, then they would potentially consider it. There was also a question raised as to whether or not this would have to be brought in both Cowlitz and Clark County, because Woodland is split. Even though Councilmember Huston's residency has been in Cowlitz County, there's still a question of whether or not both counties would have to take action in this. And so in presenting that back to the mayor, the question is whether or not the additional investigation needs to be done. I believe Councilmember Huston provided a additional lease agreement for in October or November. And so that's where we're at this point.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Oh, there was an article about it in the paper, if anybody read the paper, and then I don't know what else needs to happen, because the attorneys called the landlord, verified my lease. I mean, what do I have to do? There's people basically watching my house. There's been 0 complaints to the city. I did a public records request because there was all these complaints, the mayor said, and there's been 0 complaints from any citizens about anything. So I don't know what needs to happen for it to just not be brought up over and over. I mean, I don't see any other council members getting harassed about where they live.
So,
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, may I just address the situation about harassment to the Councilman Houston? I really like you, Gabe, and it has nothing to do with this.
No,
I don't think it's harassment. No, I don't think it's harassment if the city has to come to a truth. And there's questions that haven't been quite answered. And I think the public should be privy to what's going on. It was brought up at a city council meeting for anybody to discuss. And I think this part should be brought up again at the city council meeting and allow the residents to ask questions that maybe the council or the mayor would not ask. I just think we need to have a wonderful open dialogue among all the city council members, and we don't want a shadow over any of their heads. I certainly don't, and I would love to go forward as a little city and with the city council to be able to put this to bed once and for all, for sure. I mean, I do have questions. I don't think this is the format for me to ask them, but I have questions, and I wish I could have my questions answered. And I think that what's the bottom line here is we have to be respected and we have to be trusted. And if there's ever a question, a little one, that I think that the question of trust should be put to bed one way or the other. And I think everybody should come to the final decision, and whether it goes one way or the other, we live with it. But leaving it hanging like this, I don't think is fair for the residents of the city of Woodland. And I think that if something's not quite in alignment, then it should be taken care of, because we can't leave this as a precedent going forward if something's just left unresolved.
Well, I've provided them with everything they need for residency, so it should be put to rest already.
So,
Well, I think there's a question. There might be a question. That's what I'm saying, Gabe.
Well, there shouldn't be, because I don't understand that if I've provided my legal documents for residency, what other questions could there be?
One of the questions might be, Gabe, did you really stay there? I mean, in all my heart and everything, I've had cancer and I have had chemo. I don't see how I could live away from my family during a time like that. And I think it's just we really want openness here.
Okay, so when
My heart goes out to you for having an illness. I know what that's like. I've had that illness.
So when I go back to work in Seattle and I'm gone for 4 or 5 days a week, does that not mean I don't live here anymore?
Pardon?
When I work out of town and I'm gone for 4 or 5 days a week, does that mean I'm not a resident of here anymore or not? Because I don't have to stay every
That's
night.
not the question. That's not the question on the table, Gabe. The question on the table is, did you conform to what the city asked at the time, or did you just give us something to make us happy so you didn't have to conform? And I think that we just really need to know one way or the other. I mean, some of us, say, I don't care. Some of us say we're not compassionate. I don't think it has anything to do with compassion or not compassion. It has to do with being totally honest upfront. Did you live there? Not just rent a room and not stay there, or not. And I think the whole thing should be put to rest and should come out to in the public's mind so that everybody's on the same page. And this isn't a strike against you, Gabe. It's just we need to have a city council that's very trustworthy, and we need a city council that going forward, we know that everybody is adhering to the rules and regulations of not only their position on the city council, but as a resident following what the city has put forth. And that's all I'm asking. And I think we should finally come to some conclusion, whether the mayor decides, okay, we're letting this go by the wayside and he announces it, or where we have a give and take and a talk, so we all can get our questions answered. And if we're all truthful on either side, then we'll come to the truthful conclusion of what really happened. And I don't mean to disparage you, Gabe. I have my utmost respect for you, but I am a person who runs a council, and I really need to know that everybody on my council is upfront and completely honest. And maybe you have to have your landlord come in. I don't doubt that you gotta,
They've already called
that you,
him. They've already called him. The attorney called him just the other day. I can sit in the front yard in a lawn chair and just wave at everybody if that would make everybody feel better.
No, I think that could be arranged one way or the other, Gabe. I think what we want to know is we probably all believe you signed a lease, but did you live there like you were supposed to live there? What is the term of living?
Yeah.
What are the hours? What does it
There is
mean?
no
Is your
hours.
license changed there?
My voter
I think if we,
registration is there.
So, hey, I'm gonna speak here now, Meg.
yeah,
So, yep.
I'm done, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yep. So, Gabe mentioned here about his lease and those. So let's take a step back here. So end of October, he sent me an email that said, hey, I found a location inside the city limits, short and brief. And then he sent me another email right after that, said it's not a room, it's a house. I reached out to him and I had a conversation with him, and I said, and he asked if he needed me to bring the lease in, and I said, no. I had a conversation with him, said he didn't need to bring the lease. I don't ask everyone here on council where they leave. We're all supposed to be trustworthy. We're supposed to follow, the law, and that is our, what we are elected to do. So I said, no, we don't need to, okay? I took him for his word. I had a conversation with it, Make a Difference Day. I apologized and explained that this is nothing personal. This is not me attacking him. The week before, while I was in Texas, I had 3 or 4 residents on Washington Street call me about loud noise and construction being done after hours, after 8 p.m. On a Saturday morning, I took phone calls. I had a staff meeting with Travis and Riley, and we literally walked through the people who had the permit, walked through the homeowners, we talked to the people who were complaining, and had a conversation and dialogue and said, hey, this is our policy, this is our RCW, this is our code, this is what happens here. And the reason I'm bringing that up is when a citizen or somebody comes to me and says, hey, this I'm not seeing, It's not my decision to say, forget it, tough luck. It's my job as an elected official to go have dialogue, conversation, and figure out resolution. This, Gabe, is not me attacking you. This is citizens asking me and saying, what is the deal? So on the 7th, a week later, I sent a note to Gabe about his residence and those there. He provided a photocopy screenshots of some paperwork. I sent that to Emily. Emily did reach out to the landlord, or I'm sorry, the owner. And Emily, do you want to say what that conversation was, please?
Sure. I just asked to verify that Mr. Hudson had signed a lease agreement with him with other roommates, and just verified the address. I asked if we needed to take this to a court hearing for further investigation, if he would sign an affidavit, and he said that he would need to talk with his attorney at that point. And that was the extent of my conversation with him.
And that is the dialogue and the conversation.
Well, that was not after you called. First, you called me a liar and told me that it was a false lease.
I did not call you a liar,
I have
and I'm not going
emails to show it.
I said that it was a lie that you told us here. I did not call you
Yes,
a liar.
did call me
I
a
said
liar.
this here
I can
is,
print the email out and bring it to the next meeting if you like.
again, Gabe, this is not about you. This is about me having to do my job and taking serious what I have been elected to do. And when citizens, whether I agree with their
How about
side.
you could just tell them to mind their own business, because if I've provided everything I need for legal residency, why are they so concerned still, or what are they so concerned
Gabe,
about?
it goes back to these residents on Washington Street.
I never lived
who
on Washington Street.
Get residents who were complaining about somebody building and doing hammering and having trusses delivered at 9 p.m. When a resident's call me, I'm not going to say, mind your own business, let them keep building. I'm going to go and look and say, hey, let me see what the building code says. Let me see what their building permit says. Let me see what we have as ordinances and what our laws are that we need to follow. This here is the same thing. I'm not going to say, mind your own business. I have to say, let me go do a job. I'm sorry. That is how I have been elected, and that is how I will continue to do this for the next 36 months. That is who you got elected, and I am sorry.
So what's the issue now?
Excuse me, I just want to say one more thing, that the article in the Reflector shocked me. And I think that you're bringing it up again, Gabe, by allowing it to go public that way. If you're allowed to speak your voice, then I think the other party should speak their voice. Nothing against you, but you brought it up again by putting that article, or allowing that article to go forth. And I was really taken back by it.
They came to me because I never reached out to them for anything. And
Well, then you could have said no,
I'm
Gabe.
not gonna say no. I don't have anything to lie.
So hold on here a second.
Point of order.
So, okay.
One person should be talking, not two.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gabe.
They reached out to me. I didn't reach out to the paper for anything. Why would I deny them an interview if I have nothing to hide from them? Like, full transparency. So why would I not let them write something and provide all the information that they need?
So the newspaper has reached out to the city, and they asked for any correspondence. So, Travis, last week, I believe, a public records request went to them with all emails that I have sent to Gabe, all emails that he sent to me, all text messages, whole kitchen caboodle. The Reflector has all of that information.
That's probably not very much, since you don't hardly reply back to anything, but
So,
whatever.
any other questions or comments on that from council or Meg, since you
Well, I just
Go
want
to
to
seven.
thank you for allowing the time to talk about it. And I think that something was brought up in city council one time and left hanging, we should have some closure at another time. I think it's good for all parties, and I want to thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Separate from anyone sitting on the council, this is my personal questions, and Gabe, it's nothing personal. I wish you all the best of health and everything. I just think that we finally have to put this issue to bed. Thank you.
I agree.
Do we have the authority to vote no?
No, you don't.
Well, I'm asking the mayor.
I already
So-
know that answer.
Point of order.
So, Gabe,
Let's get it done.
so Emily, the question has been asked by JJ. Do we have the authority to remove a council member? As mayor, do I have the authority to remove someone? I know the answer to these questions. Can you, from a legal perspective, rather than it looking like it's coming from me as a,
Yeah. No, the other council members and mayor do not have the authority to remove an elected official. There are very specific circumstances where an elected official can be removed from office. And as I stated, one of them relating to the residency is through the county prosecutor's office. There are a couple instances in which a council seat is automatically considered vacant, such as if they were to miss 3 meetings in a row that were unexcused absences. But in general, only a political process can remove an elected official from an elected seat.
Okay, so that's how you already answered.
yep. And Emily, you and I have talked about to do a full investigation, which some, individuals have asked for and different things. Your law firm, what would that run as cost us roughly?
Probably to start with about $5,000 to $10,000 to do a full investigation that we could turn over to the prosecutor's office. That would depend on a lot of different circumstances. And I think it's also important to note in my review of the situation, while he is a council member, that all actions that the council takes collectively are considered valid. And so these aren't actions that would be overturned at any point. And so just be, if he were removed, it would just be actions moving forward. So there's no legal risk to the decisions that the city council has already made during this time. And so to do an investigation, like I said, would be at least $5,000 to $10,000. And at that point, I don't know if the county prosecutor would want to take it or if they would need more investigation either.
Thank you. Questions, comments from anyone on council?
Yeah, Emily, this is Doug Frymark. You said that that landlord that you asked to sign documentation hesitated to do so, wanted to talk to his lawyer.
No,
Have we followed up on that?
He wants to know, so if I file harassment or a lawsuit, he'll come in and testify on my behalf, but,
All we got to do is have him sign a document that was kosher and as stated, and,
they
should
already
be done
called
with it.
him and he already confirmed it, so.
Yeah, but they'll need written
He
documentation on
doesn't
it,
need to
though.
Why
I would
doesn't
think
he
if
agree?
he's willing to do that, then I'd say,
Hold on, we're
let's
not,
proceed.
yeah, I mean,
Wh-
we're not
What's the
gonna.
problem, JJ?
Nothing.
Am I not okay to
Yeah,
speak?
you're
then?
talking.
Hold on, we're gonna be respectful, one person at a time. Douglas was asking a question. When you're done, Douglas, I will let Gabe.
Do it. Oh, go
So,
ahead.
let,
Yeah, go ahead.
So the bottom line is, we get him to come in and sign a document that it was as represented. I don't know if we need to proceed anymore. Can that happen?
If everybody else here wants to get the affidavit for themselves too, where they live, because I don't understand how it's me it has to happen to, but nobody else.
I'm just saying, okay, it would be the thing to do, the smart thing to do
It's-
to satisfy our attorney.
I don't need to, I've already provided a legal document. It doesn't have to go any farther than that.
That's all I had to ask.
yeah. Any other comments? Perfect. Anything from the audience, not on the agenda, or anyone online? Okay. Agenda approval.
Motion to approve agenda. Second.
Comments, questions? Fire away, Ms. Schmitz.
Motion to approve the agenda. Sorry, excuse me. Councilmember Freimark,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Moving
You
into,
forgot
Sorry,
me.
Councilmember Rounds.
Thank you. Aye.
reports of city council.
Yes, the turkey bingo and the snowflake bazaar. I know this was kind of JJ's thing, or sorry, council member. But Councilmember Burke's thing. But the class of 2025 kind of combined with the Grange, and it was fabulous. It was moved to the high school, and it was the biggest bazaar I think Woodland has seen. As far as size-wise, the biggest bingo Woodland has seen, with almost
564.
564 people attended it. And the class of 2025 is going to do one in March as a fundraiser for their grad party at the high school. So hopefully we get the same size attendance as our turkey bingo. So it was fabulous, but it was just a well-attended event all the way around. So
Excellent.
Yep.
Any others?
I don't see anything on the agenda that mentions this, but the Woodland Action Council is having their fundraiser this Thursday, and I thought maybe everybody should know about that. It's, what do they call it?
Is it the soup, fill the bowl or
Fill the
something
bowl,
like
the
that
empty
at the
bowl.
golf
Oh,
course?
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Empty bowl.
Empty bowl.
empty bowl.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Any other reports? Reports of standing committees. Public Works.
Yeah, there was no water complaints for the month of November. The installation of the new Badger meters has begun and is needed for new services and replacements. South Beacon and Fifth paving project has been completed and is set to be striped early this week. Contractors working on the final punch list to close out the project. Street sweeping rental is going. They're filling pothole as time allows. Working to get the old library up to ADA standards for restroom and redo the interior painting and flooring. Hunter Davidson passed the annual L&I inspection, and there's been a lot of graffiti and vandalism at Hoffman Plaza restrooms, and they are adjusting the restroom operating hours. Downtown holiday decorations are going up, and the gun club, they received permission from WSDOT to combine all the funding into one project. They're preparing construction obligation documents and plan to put out to bid January of 2025. And we were awarded a Pacific Sidewalk grant for $200,000 for a $50,000 match. And that's about it.
Any questions from council or the community on Public Works? Anything you would like to throw in there, Riley?
Nope, just pretty proud of the team for getting the grants that we did this year, and it's gonna be a busy year in 2025.
Yeah, great job by the team over there to get the grants, Catherine team. So this is one of those items that's in the budget where we didn't put the grant money in there, but we put the funding, our 25% funding in there. So that will line up very nicely there. Okay? Reports to city officers. Mayor's report. Make this quick. Just one item, out there. The non-apartments, the 85 units that are going in on Lewis River Road. There's been a few people that have reached out and complained about the dirt and the gravel that is there. So we've worked together. We've met with the contractor out there. They actually were shut down on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We're requiring them to have a water truck, requiring them to scrape down that dirt. It hasn't rained, so it's a little bit drier right now. That fill dirt that's coming in there is for compaction, and it's coming from the port, but eventually that dirt will have to be moved back off of there again later on, kind of down the road. So the team is, once again, has worked great with that. Travis and Riley have met with them, gone out there, Scott Summers. So a lot of people to know. We're keeping an eye on that.
You said apartments. I thought
I
it was
said
gonna be.
not apartments.
Oh, not apartments. Okay. I was thinking it was supposed to be homes.
We don't know the name of the subject,
Okay.
but it's not apartments.
All right.
You know, and
Gotcha.
people still has that apartment sign there. That's why I call it the non-apartments.
Okay.
For 85 homes.
Okay.
Sorry. So, any questions on that there for the community? Upcoming events, the tree lighting is on Saturday, 5 to 9 p.m. City council meeting is then followed on the 16th. Planning commission on the 19th has been canceled that week before Christmas. And then I would throw out there also on the 20th is the lighted parade. So the city has done that. A couple of things I want to throw out. I think individuals in the community knows I take safety and security very important around here. So the tree lighting this year, the street on Davidson will be shut down, kind of an improvement, so kids, families. And then also the lighted parade, and I'm looking over here at Sarge, the lighted parade, we will have officers that we've asked to help with that, and kind of a deal to provide.
I thought they were gonna provide the lights.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can do that too. So a couple things, you know, partnering with the community and doing those. Hopefully everyone can come out to those items. Questions or comments? Consent items.
Make-
Motion to approve the consent item. A.
Second.
Comments or questions about the minutes?
I read it.
Perfect.
Looking for my name.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
Moving into action items, action item B, approve vouchers, November 2nd, half of 2024. So those are a late addition that were on here. So a couple things that I would point out. We're still working through Tyler Tech, but there are a couple invoices on there that I want people to be aware of so that they understand what they were. There's an insurance one for roughly $709,000. That's in our budget. That is our annual payment that we pay for our buildings, our
Right.
cars, and liability, that type of, so it's an all-inclusive deal. It's in the budget. Also in there is the 2 Axon invoices. So we signed a contract this last council meeting, and so we're working there, paying the 2024 piece, and then we're gonna start getting that equipment implemented and put on the cars, and also them getting their new tasers and body cameras. Sorry, not new tasers, they already have Axon, it's the body cameras. Okay?
Okay.
So action item B, approve vouchers November 2nd, half.
Motion
Make a
to
motion to approve action item B, approve vouchers.
Second.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item C, ordinance number 1566, adopting the budget for 2025 and providing the appropriation of funds into such accounts. Final reading. Any comments or questions from the audience or anyone online about our 2025 budget? Things that Mr. Brown,
I have.
come up here to the,
Thank you. I was curious about the TIB item for about 40,000.
transportation,
The Transportation Improvement Board, the cost of 40,300. And as that relates to the cost associated with watering Horseshoe Lake Park, because to me, at face value, that looks like a line item that could be covered by that cost. And I'm wondering if in the budget that's still up for debate.
So, my view of the world is, we can have a dialogue, have a conversation. The $30,000, you know, it started out, and I can't see Riley over there. I'm not looking through you, Mr. Brown. I'm just.
It's okay.
So, the previous year it was $60,000 to water the budget. We've, you know, worked things through, and eliminating a position. It's down to $30,000. We had this discussion. Council, it wasn't in there. Council kind of made the recommendation and said, hey, we would like to see it in there. So I put it in there, and that's where that 30,000 is back in there. I've taken the direction here that with it passing, that will be, hey, let's see what we can do to reduce the water usage. Does it have to be golf course green? Does it have to be, you know, something a little bit less than that, and maybe we can reduce some of the costs there, is what I took. The $40,000 of the TIB, I don't have that right off of my bat, but Riley, do you know what that is?
Yeah, it's $49,300. That is the TIB grant match for the Pacific Avenue Sidewalk completion project.
Oh, the 25%, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So we got a grant for 200,000, but we'll match 25%.
And the city has to cover 25%, which will come from the general fund?
Correct.
Okay. And the cost of the water for Horseshoe Lake, what fund does that come from?
So the horseshoe watering comes out of the park fund, but again, park fund is funded from the general fund.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So absolutely.
Wanted to chat about it.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're just billing ourselves and paying ourselves. Is that what they're doing?
So the water fund, so we pay water bill just like everyone else. So yes, that 33,000 will go, and where our usage goes up, we obviously have to charge that so that we can, you know, there's a slight premium on the cost of water and the cost of the treatment and all that.
Truly.
And the city is paying that exact same deal.
And it's an overall relatively small dollar amount. But philosophically, when it came up a few council meetings ago, it stuck with me. It sticks to the ribs when you consider $30,000 to $60,000 for water in an environment that has a very notable amount of water.
And, you know, I have dialogue and conversation around town. Several people in here I've met with and go to breakfast with and different things. And it's interesting. So you talked, not to be politically correct, but you talk to old timers, people who have been here. You know what? I grew up with that park being brown, you know, and then we have other people who are like, well, you know what? It's the crown royal. It's the crown jewel of Woodland, which I totally agree. Let's make it very presentable. I mean, it's very polarizing,
right,
for the $33,000.
Agreed. Thank you.
Just a thought and question. So, take it for what you will. So let's say we take the watering out of the budget. So it's $30,000 less that we're spending. You would also have to then recognize that we would receive $30,000 less in revenue. So because we're paying the city for the water. So the amount you could collect would be $30,000 less because we're not paying.
It's going to be a little bit of a trickle down effect. So our sewer fund.
How is that though? But how do you create revenue out of
Why not just
nothing?
give them a discount, not charge them anything?
But you have to sell something in order to create revenue.
There's ordinances. Everybody pays the same price for water. The city does not get a discount. So.
Well, don't run treated water. Use untreated water that doesn't cost all that money.
So, with Mr. Friend's comment here, so when we have the increased revenue, obviously we do have increased sales, but there is going to be that piece there that would go into our sewer or our water fund. So it would help it, increase it a little bit. So that would come down slightly, although at the same time our 30,000 of expenses. So Todd Deinhardt's view of the world, we can certainly vote the contract or the budget down tonight. We can come back, have a workshop, and redo this for the $30,000, or we can continue. I'm not saying that you're.
I know.
Okay.
Totally.
You and
totally
I have
well
had conversation,
taken.
but I just want to
Absolutely.
make sure you understand. I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions from anyone in the audience about the 2025 budget? Highlights and things I want to remember is that it does not increase a 1% for property taxes. Property taxes may increase because of, assessments, values, all of those things, but the city is not asking for 1% more of revenue. It's a balanced budget. It does pay for some of these projects that we have here, such as the old library, getting it ADA so we can use it, putting a new foundation in the current community center, which is heavily used by the senior enrichment group. So again, I think it provides a lot of value and services for our community.
I have a question. This has nothing to do with the budget, but
Then why are
was,
you asking?
well,
Brown?
I just thought of it. Did the library pay us for that building?
So
No.
the old library, that is owned by the city.
I know. But did they lease it from the city, or did they pay rent?
No, it did not.
I don't know that they ever paid rent. I believe it was an old agreement. I would have to pull it up. But once they vacated it, it reverted back to the city of Woodland because it was on our property. It was one of those things that we own the property.
We had to require them a building to bring the library here to Woodland.
Okay.
So we gave them the building, no
To use.
charges,
Okay.
and then it's our building,
Okay.
just like the fire department.
Okay.
They were ours.
We'll have a conversation later.
Okay, perfect.
Motion to approve ordinance number 1566.
Second.
Any other questions or comments from anyone here on council about the budget? With that,
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
the ayes have it. Moving into ordinance number 1548, marijuana retail sales, first reading. Before we get into citizen comment, council, I want to remind people, one, respectful of each other. We're going to one person at a time, and let's talk about how this got back on here to the agenda. Again, if I want to land use rights, if I want to change zoning, if I want to do something different with my property, I pay $2,500 and I go back through the planning department, take it to the planning commission, and then I bring it here to city council. They have taken and paid their $2,500 back in June, July?
Actually, I think it was January.
January, they paid it and went to the planning commission in August. Paid the $2,500. Planning commission, of a vote 2-1 at the time, there was only 3 members there, recommended that C2 zoning be changed to allow the sale of retail marijuana. From there, it comes onto our agenda here, and that is how we have gotten to marijuana on
How many
the
times has it been brought to the planning commission for rezone?
4 times.
It's been recommended every time by the planning commission?
Correct. With that, I will open it up to community members. Mr. Bruce is the first one on the list for here. Come on up, sir.
First of all, let me thank everyone for their service, and I promise I'm going to behave tonight. In the past, I've come to every one of the meetings that has to do with the pot shop. The customers have been referred to as butterflies that need to be managed or protected. It's been for the children, keep the weed out of the school. I got a high school student again, and weed's still in the school, and I guarantee it ain't coming from 20 after 4. I do want to remind everyone that our last election, the new faces that are sitting up here because a lot of people in the community pushed hard on the basis that pot shop would reopen. I want to remind everyone that's up for election, up for your seat again, it could be the same thing. It could be a landslide. So I would like the city council to take into consideration what the planning commission has said and take forward. And that's all I have. Thank everyone for their service.
Questions or comments for Mr. Bruce? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone, that was all that I have signed in. If there's anyone in the room, feel free to. I'm going to start right here with Darlene.
my spiel before, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. I'm very much opposed to that, having a pot shop in Woodland. I think that I heard a radio show that was talking about legalizing drugs, and it actually affects young kids more than it does the adults by legalizing drugs, and that apparently people from 10 to 13 are very susceptible to thinking that if something is legal, and if something is legal within our town, then it really can't hurt you. And it's not logical, but I know I used to feel that way about alcohol. I just felt like, well, I'm going to wait till I'm 21, but I can drink it younger, because if it doesn't hurt you at 21, it probably doesn't hurt you at 18. It's the thought process, and we gotta not have that. Then I already have told you the bad effects of marijuana, because we test for it, and especially in males under 25, it's the likelihood of schizophrenia later on is huge. And but in this radio show that I listened to, it was talking about how it affects people that don't get that bad. And what it does, our brain has a certain section that gives us joy. And when you use much marijuana, that joy comes with that. And if you keep using it and get more, then when you stop, your brain quits working on providing that joy. So even when you get clean of it, if you ever do, and the reason you do is because people like to feel good. I'm funny. I finish a tax return. It makes me feel good. I wouldn't want that joy taken away from anything, or if I can something, or if I do a walk. You know, it's something that we shouldn't have anything here that encourages the use of drugs at all. And that's, if you vote for this, that's what you're doing. You're encouraging the use of drugs, and especially the younger people are going to think, well, the city of Woodland thinks it's fine. They even have a pot shop. And I don't want that.
I have a question.
Yep. Darlene, I think we have.
Sorry.
Yep.
You were talking about the kids. Do you know what the legal age is to be able to go into the store?
Probably 25.
So
21, excuse me.
So I really don't think there's going to be kids going in there.
They don't go in there, but they see the store and they think.
There's nothing on that
So,
store.
hold on, one at a time,
Okay, can I talk? There's
respectfully,
nothing
John.
on the store advertising wise, and if parents would just educate their kids, then they wouldn't have to worry about what's going to happen to them. But when they're 21, that's the only time they can go in the store. So I don't understand how you keep using the kids.
Well, the reason I use the kids is there's many, many studies on it. And if you want to look online, you can see the study that kids in high school and younger, as young as 10 to 13, if they think something is legal, they think it really can't hurt you.
Well, I haven't seen anybody here when their 3 vape shops have opened up in town, but I haven't heard any pushback from anyone in the community about vape shops. And I think that's a little more harmful than marijuana would be. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I don't agree that it's more harmful. I don't like vape shops either. I don't like vaping because
But we have
I
3
think
of them
it's
in town.
unhealthy.
Hold on, one at a time, we're speaking here.
I think it's unhealthy. But vapes, I don't believe affect the brain. You know, your brain is who you are and how you feel about things. And when you affect that, and maybe it doesn't ever come back, that's sinful. That's awful. And to let people think it's okay. And, you know, if it's so much okay, why do I have to test for it for truck drivers? Why do I have to never let anybody, you lose your CDL license and everything because it affects your brain and your thinking.
Well, don't do it if you're a truck driver.
Your Honor.
Yeah.
Your Honor, can you stop Gabe Houston
Am I
from
not allowed to
interrupting
speak?
everybody.
Hey,
No,
hey,
you
stop.
can't talk out of turn.
Right, we gotta let one at a time speak.
Go ahead. I just won't say a
I
word.
forgot where I was.
All right.
No, we do have to test for truck drivers. It's actually a more concentrated test and more detrimental than testing for alcohol. We test for alcohol too. And we do because, and I have to take classes on it. That's why I know how it affects people. And it actually affects a completely different part of the brain than alcohol does. It affects your thinking part. And alcohol affects your talking and your walking and that. And so it's very much difficult for me to look at somebody and say, hey, you've on marijuana, I want you tested. I can do that with a truck driver if I smell alcohol or they're walking funny. But anyway, it definitely affects the thinking part of the brain. There's studies that show that when you bring it into a community, there's more usage and that kids start getting it. Maybe not direct from the pot shop, but they get it somehow. And once they get it, it affects them the rest of their life. And I don't think anybody wants to do that.
Thank you. I have two Browns here.
Hi there, I'm Katie Brown. I have 4 children, ages 20, 18, 16, and 11. It's 15, almost 16. So I've had them at all 3 schools, the elementary, the middle, and the high school. I don't want my kids using pot. That's not what I'm here to say. But what I am here to say is that it is legal. It is a part of what's going on in today's world. Just like alcohol, I'm sure our ancestors who dealt with prohibition were talking about these same issues. It's here. It's in front of us. So it's how we choose to deal with it. One thing that I think of, especially since we were just going through the budget, is that's a tremendous amount of tax dollars that we could be bringing into the community to fix things like our roads. We've got potholes everywhere. We've got a chain link fence that separates us from the highway. There are some things we could put that money toward. We can educate the kids through the parents and at the school level. Alcohol, I disagree. I think that our generation is trying to heal from the alcoholic generation. I think that alcohol does just as much damage as pot has ever done. And I think if you talked to the police station, I mean, I'd love to know the stats on how many calls are alcohol related versus how many calls are pot related. There's a lot of healing benefits that alcohol simply doesn't have. So a lot of these arguments that you can get tit for tat and all of that, but it's here. And I mean, if we're going to make a business decision, I heard it a couple meetings back, like, let's give that money to, La Center and that community. But I think our community could use those dollars and could put it to good use. And we can do things in the school to educate kids, but I do think that we have to trust the government and the fact that they are regulating it, and they card every kid that goes in there. I know they are, just like at a bar. But we are going to have to just look at the fact that it's here, it's in front of us, it's not going anywhere. And I also just wanted to make the argument that I've spoken to countless people within the community at all 3 levels, high school, middle school, and grade school. And within my age range, and slightly younger than me, so that'd be like 30s to 40s, I haven't heard one person say that they are against it. And I've encouraged lots of people to come to the meetings, and people are busy, everyone's busy, has their kids and stuff, but I have not heard one person say that they wouldn't want to vote on it. So I think we need to hear the community, and we need to hear what they have to say, because I think that obviously people have strong opinions, and pot's good, pot's bad, but it's here.
So,
I just have a couple of comments. Most of the money goes to the state. Very little comes down to the city when you sell pot. And it's federally still illegal.
Okay, but it is legal in the state of Washington.
Correct.
And I bet within 5 to 10 years it will be legal at the federal level. So,
Did I see a hand over here?
And not just the tax revenue might generate a lot of tax.
Hey, hold on, there's a little bit of order here.
Okay, order.
Okay.
It's not just the tax revenue. It's when people come into town, they don't just go to the pot shop. They go to Walmart. They go to Ace. They go to here and there. But they're spending money all over town. They're going to restaurants. They're going. So it's not just the tax revenue that it's generating. It's generating a lot more revenue than just that. So it would be beneficial for if you're looking at it from a business sense. Put your personal feelings out and just look at it as a straight business, and it's a no-brainer.
I do appreciate what you said, that it is time that we let the citizens have their voice. And I think that's what some of us have tried really hard to get this council to do, is let them have a voice.
yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that most of the meetings too. I think just put it to the people. That'll just end it.
Appreciate your thoughts.
Thank
Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, that's not working. You're misinformed about the income from taxes on that. As Councilwoman Brown said, it's a very small amount of money. It's insignificant. The problems it causes would probably outweigh it by 1,000 to 1 dollar-wise, probably maybe even more. But that's another story to talk about. You're a young mother, and I appreciate that. I'd say you're a very young mother. I'd guess in 30 years from now, your opinion will change. Mine did. And I've got great grandkids. You're just a little on the young side to have a long-term opinion on it. Believe me, there are long-term effects that I've seen personally. I hope this city never has legalized marijuana sales in the city limits. Just because it's a state law, that doesn't mean it's a good law. That doesn't mean it's sane and sober. There's a lot of crazy people in our country, in the world. And I would strongly disagree with how they represent that. I would agree with Darlene in that our kids get normalized. They see a shop, and this goes for liquor and vaping shops as well as marijuana shops. I'm against all three, personally. They have an effect on the youth to see that, and they become normalized and saying, okay, well, it's not that bad because it's legal. And how many people say it's legal in our state that justify its use and say, okay, well, some states say no, some states say yes. The same problem with abortion and things like that that are very controversial. And if you have a stand on it, you should stick with it. As long as I'm on this council, I'm going to vote no on anything marijuana related within our city limits. And I'm willing to, put my next election on that basis too, in advance. That's how strongly I feel about it. You will change your mind in a few decades. I promise you that. Because you seem like a reasonable, intelligent, open-minded person. But we don't know all the facts. Speak to your doctors, and when we have more studies in, it'll become clear down the road what a lot of people already have experienced and understand personally. Good luck with your kids. I'm glad you're taking good care of them. You educate them probably far more better than an average parent, and that's where that argument fails, is because most parents don't do as good a job as it appears like you're doing. They just don't. They let the educational system bring their kids up far more than they should. If we had stronger family units that would educate their kids to the pros and cons of everything in the world, not just marijuana sales, we'd be far, far better off. And that's where my stand is as an individual, as a member of the city, and as a council member.
This doesn't have anything to do with marijuana. Your mic, it needs to be straight here. When you angle it like this, you're talking right over the top of it. Straighten it out. Straighten it out, buddy.
Did you hear me okay when I was talking?
No. That's why I say straighten it. Just straighten it out like
I just probably wasn't close enough.
Just straighten it out like everyone else is. That way.
Oh.
Maybe they need to turn the volume up on the mic.
There. And now push it back a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go.
You think that's better? Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No.
If you had a question on anything else, feel free to ask me.
Well, I respectfully disagree in a few points. I guess only time will tell. We're obviously going to disagree because I've said the way I think. But I think that we can work hard to educate our kids as best we can. But my argument is mainly that it's here. There's not a lot. I mean, it's here. It's not going anywhere. We're going to be arguing about it for a really long time, but just like alcohol, it's going to be in grocery stores. It's here. So what are we as a community going to do about it, you know? And I think that it's obviously a contentious issue and we differ. And I think that if we let the people say their opinions, we would know where we stand.
Well, we all entitled to our opinions, that's for sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now, yes.
I hope this is
Don't
working
bend
better.
it.
Okay, time will tell. Time will tell. And I've never seen anybody live to be my age that has not changed their mind. I will tell you that. And I speak for maybe 30 people. You know, not a lot, but without exception. And where I live, the folks feel like that. And I represent them first and foremost.
Sure.
So give it real consideration and be open to the new facts. Just because it's here, well, crime's here. Murder, rape, you know, tons and tons of bad things. You know, buildings burned down, a lot of natural disasters. Just because it's here, that doesn't mean it's right.
Mr. Houston.
I just have a question for Douglas. Wasn't your name on the sign from the pot shop? Vote for change.
It was for, what, a day and a half. And then I have to give Mr. John Storr credit. I walked into his place of business and said, please take my name down from that billboard. And they did. So no, I'm not counting on any votes from people that support marijuana usage, let alone retail sales. Now, if you want to use it, you know, I can bend your ear for hours and telling you personal stories of people that have used and abused their bodies, not just with marijuana, not just with drugs, alcohol, smoking, and we just have to be careful. I'm getting to the age, I'm 77 now, and I wish I'd lived a little bit different health-wise. I guarantee you, probably a lot of us feel that way too. Made wiser decisions. That's what I'm advising you now. Make wise decisions for yourself and your children. And I don't think marijuana retail sales would help that in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other half of the family?
Yes.
You notice I didn't say better or anything. I just said
No,
the other half.
No, not at all. Thank you. A few things. First of all, the nature of this debate is being misrepresented. We're not talking about the merits of marijuana. We're not talking about whether or not marijuana should be for sale. We're not talking about whether or not alcohol should be for sale. We're talking about the power of choice. And ageism is not something that impacts power of choice. How old I am will not change whether or not I'm in favor of democracy and the democratic process. The proposal to stand in the way of a bid that is meant to be on a vote for the public is an out and out direct obstacle to the democratic process. That is the debate we're having, not whether or not pot or alcohol is good for you. So to say that it's elsewise is patently false. So my suggestion to the council is to observe democracy. Thank you.
Mr. Friend.
Just wanted to thank you for your comments and agree that we're all brought here to hear the voices of the people of Woodland and represent the people of Woodland, and we can't do that without hearing the people of Woodland. And so without it being on a ballot, I mean, I can tell you that I've talked to a handful of people that are for it and a handful of people that are against it, but I haven't at large heard the community. As your wife mentioned earlier, you know, people work, they have jobs. I too have a job and kids, and it's hard to get everyone to this meeting to stand in front of us to speak an opinion. So from my seat, in order to represent the people of Woodland, we have to hear from the people of Woodland, and that is the core of democracy, is voting. and allowing, and I feel like if we're sure that the people of Woodland are not for this, then voting shouldn't be an issue because it would speak for itself at that time. So, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
So, just to circle around here, I mean, and everyone knows that I'm about letting the community vote. That's it. But that's not why we're here. I just want to be careful. I mean, this here is not to take a vote whether or not we're going to put this on a ballot. This here is a whether or not we're going to change an ordinance and allow retail marijuana sales in C2 zoning. I just want to make sure that we don't muddy our waters here. Not picking on you, Mr. Brown. I'm just.
I just
You're-
did.
Go ahead, Jay.
I did want to add to that because this, us approving or rejecting this would allow the cells, I mean, effective as soon as this goes into play. So I think that's also a problem because now we're making a decision for the people without hearing the voices. So I think it's only fair to hear, and so while I do understand that what we're voting on here tonight is whether to really skip hearing the people's voices and just move straight to opening or rejecting, just from my seat, I think it's important to hear what the citizens want.
And
100% agree. I just wanted to make sure that people weren't understanding what was going here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, totally agree. I think every core issue with having a pot shop or not and all the peripheral matters have to do with one core issue, which is whether or not democracy prevails in the city of Woodland.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to agree with not giving the people a vote and denying the zone change and then not letting them vote is not, like you said, a democracy, and we need to at least give the people the chance to tell us what how they feel. So,
yeah.
I know it's going to get denied tonight, but anyways.
Voting is fine, and this is about all of the parameters associated with the sale of marijuana, the pros and cons of it. So I disagree with you. It's a limited discussion. The reason we're talking about this is the whys and the whys and the why fors. How come we're having a conversation whether it's legal or not? How come we're talking about it? Because does the town really need that? Do we want that for our kids in particular? You as adults, you know, you want to affect your mind on a long-term basis, not even know it. That's up to you. That's okay with me. I mean, that's I can tell you as a Vietnamese veteran that your perceptions of drugs in general probably aren't complete. Mine aren't either, and I'm a lot older, experienced in that than you probably are.
So you're using the age argument again.
Nope, see, age has something to do with it.
And you're using an emotional argument as
And
well.
it is
I'm asking about
emotional because people
democracy.
die
Mr.
every
Farmer.
day on it.
No, they
So
don't.
besides that,
Nobody's ever died from marijuana.
I understand where you're coming from. I do not agree with it, and I think there's a lot of citizens of this city that do not agree with it either. So would you vote for a change in the speed limit on I-5 out here from 70 miles an hour to 120 starting tomorrow?
I don't know, but if I had the
Would you?
opportunity to vote, I would be able to consider
There
it.
would be a lot of people that would. And would we want them to be able to decide that for us?
We want the voter to be able to decide what they'd
Think
like
about-
to decide
think about
based
that.
on their
Would you
vote.
put up the
Hold on.
popular vote?
We need to let he was
That's it.
speaking. One at a time here.
I'm in favor of voters deciding, based on their vote, what happens in a city, in a state, and in our country, the United States of America, based on democracy.
If they're informed,
You are too mostly? What do you mean by mostly?
One at a time. One at a time.
Okay. Just, if it's a Democratic council, then it needs to be Democratic, not Democratic mostly. All due respect.
I think we are democratic. Our system of election and staying in place is a democratic process. I don't think this has anything to do with democracy at
How does
all.
it not have anything to do with democracy, Mr. Freimark?
Because we were elected as council members, and we're doing our job.
To represent the people, though, not.
To
Gabe,
represent the
Gabe,
people
one at a
in a
time.
democracy, yes or no? Right, are we living in a democracy or not?
Yes, we are.
So that your function is to represent the democracy, correct?
Your function is to tell people where you stand on a timely basis so they know what you're going to do, and then do that, not change your mind like so many politicians that, you know, put their finger up and say, which way is the wind blowing today, okay? That's not a democracy. That's not the people I want to elect. I want to know who they are, what they stand for, and what they're going to do in advance.
Understood.
And I don't want anybody wishy-washy up there that says, oh, it's a democracy. Things have changed in the last 5 years. We're going to do it 180 degrees. that doesn't work.
I respect your opinion and your retaining of your opinion, but that's not what we're talking about, someone's opinion. We're talking about the democratic process and the ability to voice the opinion. So having a timely issuance of what your opinion is and taking a stand on the matters that you take a stand on and remaining steadfast in those, I respect entirely. What we're talking about is democracy and whether or not someone gets to vote on it, not what their position is and how long and steadfast they remain to that position.
I would agree with most of that, but it would be a long conversation to tell you where you're wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, maybe sometime we can have that conversation,
Sure.
Mr. Freimark.
Okay. Melissa has a comment.
Well, I think that in most issues, we have been elected and we have done a very good job at listening and doing our job as council. But I think in an issue like this, that has been an issue for over a decade, we are not doing our job as council when we have numerous people who have asked us and come up time and time again, and this issue has come upon vote after vote, and we have seen it divided amongst council and divided amongst our community, and they have asked, let the people have a voice, and we are telling them flat to their face, we don't care about your voice. We are not listening to a democratic society and how this system should be done. And I think much like this last election, where we had things on our ballot that came down from Seattle, that we were voting on things that Seattle just passed, and we were trying to get them taken back, and the wordage on things made you not sure what you were voting on. I think we don't ask after we do it. On an issue that is so split, it is time to ask before we do it again. And we shouldn't even be having this in front of us again until we get the people's opinion. We need to put this on the ballot, period. This shouldn't be an issue that even comes in front of us until we get the people's voice on a ballot, or in some capacity have data in front of us. And I'm sad that somebody is having to pay in an astronomical amount time and time again to put something in front of us just for it to be on our minds, because we won't even listen to all the people who say, just give us a voice to show you what our town wants. Whether we agree with it or not, that's our job. And if we can't come up with a reasonable solution up here that is not divided 4-3 or, unanimous, then it is our job to go to the people to say, what do you want us to do? Because we are not unanimous on this topic and have not been since very early on, in 10 years ago plus. So it is time to take it to the people and listen to all of these people that continuously come to us, no matter what side they stand on. It's time for them all to have that voice and to show us what we want to know and to have that data in front of us. And then to figure out what we want to do with that data. Because if it's split 50-50, then yeah, we get that voice to say where we want to stand on it. But if it's not 50-50, then we need to see what our town really does want and decide from there. And I think that it's time we start listening, because otherwise we don't deserve the seats that we're sitting in right now.
One question to Mr. Mayor.
Oh.
Does the applicant pay the $2,500 every time?
Every time.
Every time it comes before us?
Every time, yes. 100%, $2,500. And that is our ordinance, and that is our fee resolution, that they pay the $2,500. So,
Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm gonna skip over you, Ms. Johnson, just because you've already spoken. Not being disrespectful, but I have people behind you. So, did I have, I thought,
I had my hand up, but I already.
you already spoke. Go ahead, sir. Yep, come on.
I just gonna say, Derek Wynn, I just, whatever decision you make on that, whether you yay or nay, I respect that decision. It's a tough call, but I respect anybody's decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That's right, John.
Trish. Travis, will you take notes, please?
Hi, my name's Trish. I'm local here to Woodland. Moved here 5 years ago. Mom, coach, employee here locally in Woodland. I am speaking from a personal point of view, not as a user. I don't use marijuana. However, I do have a question for the council. Being somebody who's had family and family members who I've helped support in Oregon many years ago, open up a shop for medical versus recreational. When it went recreational, there was a lot that the city of Portland did and implemented on getting funds from them, not just from the state, but the city was able to implement a tax on them for education for schools, funds for schools, funds for parks, that sort of thing, kind of playing off what Ms. Brown was discussing. I was wondering, has anyone looked into that? Also, I'm right there with Mr. and Mrs. Brown as far as leaving it to the people. Something else that I had discovered in the journey with my family who ran a successful shop in Oregon was they worked with the local shops on coming and educating the kids on what not to do. Most of the shop owners I know in Portland, this is different, would actually go to the schools and tell kids why you need to wait for your frontal lobe to completely develop if you are going to go into this. You don't get a lot of alcohol shops coming and doing that sort of thing. So when we do, if we are able to pass this or not pass it, or if it does come to the people, maybe looking at those avenues too as not just this is a yes or no, but it is here in front of us. What can we do as far as education and funds that can help our city grow if this is going to be a thing that's going to continue coming around?
Hey, Emily, I know you're on the phone and would probably know better than anyone. Is this city, through resolution or something, would the city be allowed to add an additional tax for marijuana sales only? So it wouldn't include, any other items?
That is a good question that I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it's set by state law. There might be, I'd have to double check if there's an opt-in percentage that you could increase the amount that you get from the state rather than it all going to the state. There are certain taxes that you can do that with, like I know the public safety one recently. But I'd have to check specifically on marijuana. This hasn't come up recently, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
When we let the gambling come into Woodland, we started with a 10% tax we imposed on them. I don't know if you can do it for marijuana, but
I can speak from somebody, like I said, who helped support family members who opened first a medical shop. With the cancer had hit our family really hard. That was their intent of opening it. Their father, family members had all hit it, or got hit really hard with cancer, and that was a way that they got relief. And I understand that. It is very hard to make a living off medical only. And they almost went under a couple different times before recreational hit. But that being said, they did work with the state and worked with their city as far as taxes, education, that sort of thing. All those things we're worried about. And I'm just saying that might be an avenue to check out if this is the path forward that we want to go.
Any other questions or comments for? Excellent, thank you. Okay, you already spoke, but I will give you 2 minutes each since you've already spoke, and I do agree with letting people speak, so.
Can I say one thing real fast?
Fire away.
You can, municipalities can impose a transfer tax on the sale of cannabis on top of the state tax, is what I've read.
Yeah. Emily, I'm sure will get back to us and let us know in the next week.
I just want to make the point, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic, and this is exactly how a republic acts, and that if it isn't for elected officials, every time they have a difficult decision to send it out, that's your job.
that's correct.
Mr. Bruce. Hold on, let's be, Mr. Bruce, come up, we'll be respectful to each other, we're not gonna get into a debate here in the audience, we can all go outside later on and, be friends and.
I appreciate you giving me another chance. I'm not sure on the rules here. I've asked questions directly to City Council before, but City Council
Here's the
member.
deal, you're speaking to me, They can respond if they want to. If they don't want to, they are not required to.
Okay.
So it's you and I having a conversation, sir.
As you know, I worked for JP for well over a year. I had to call 911 2 times at that shop. It wasn't for theft, actually maybe 3 times. Twice for transients, doing God only knows what. We kept the transients out of there. Kept it clean, kept it professional. And once for a really bad rear end accident where someone slammed on their brakes to get into the coffee shop. Other than that, where I heard the comment 1,000 times fold, and I'm sure Sergeant back there can probably verify my facts aren't too far off, the crime wasn't at the store. There were no, that I'm aware of in the time I worked there were no crime, accidents and transients, and we kept the transients at bay. So that's all I wanted to say. That struck me personally. I was like, well, no, I did my job. I kept everything where it was supposed to be and everyone happy. So thank you for letting me speak again.
Any comments, questions? Yep.
That's good and admirable in my estimation, but like in a pharmacy, the crime's not usually at the pharmacy. It's when the product leaves and goes elsewhere. What does it do to you then? And if you got to use good common sense on it. And that's, you should be admonished
One
for
at a time.
keeping your place clean of crime. And every place should do that. But just because you didn't have any crime at your location, that doesn't mean that there wasn't great effect elsewhere on it.
And I did try to do a Freedom Information Act on the school district because I keep hearing the kids come up, and for some reason our school districts, and maybe I can be corrected if I'm wrong, don't report marijuana and alcohol to the police. So to be able to correct that issue, now I've got a 23-year-old man that's a son, stepson, awesome kid. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke weed, graduated from Woodland High School. Even with me doing what I did for work, I've got a freshman, I've got a 7th grader. We've educated our children. So the difference between my household and the household down the street would be the education. And it would really, I think, and I'll get back to the crime thing because I just popped in my head. My brain was braining. If the schools would start enforcing, I think I had a minor in possession. That used to be a charge that some of us went through. I think I had one as a minor. It's a minor child in possession of, mine was for alcohol at like 14 years old. I learned a very valuable lesson because the police department got involved. I had consequences for my actions back then. Today, the schools are sweeping under the rug or taking it directly to the parents. I'd like to see law enforcement get involved when the kid's caught with weed or alcohol at school. To me, that would be awesome.
That's your 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate coming back
I'll
up.
respond, and that is, we're not the school district, so
Right.
how they report, don't report.
Right,
Again,
but you see where I was trying to go with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just didn't want you to think that, we would know, because we don't, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank 2 minutes, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. I would ask for about 15 seconds. I'm comfortable with all the comments I made earlier, but I do want to address the comment about democracy. We live in a democratic republic, which is a synonym for a democracy. Do any of you disagree? Okay. So approving zoning and approving voting for a body of people on a matter of any kind is in fact democracy. Is there any questions about that or disagreement from the council? Thank you.
Come on up, Miss Holland. It's like The Price is Right. Come on down.
Tell us you got a 5-minute limit.
So much PTSD over this subject. Hi, my name's Deanna Holland. So historically, I've heard a couple things about this conversation. So this is a zoning thing, right? So just so people are aware, because I know a lot of council members are new to the city of Woodland. October 21st, 2019, this body of government voted in a permanent prohibition on the sale of retail marijuana inside the city limits. A permanent prohibition. So my question had always been, if there's a permanent prohibition, why are we having this conversation about zoning? And no one could ever answer that. As a council member, no one can answer that. So
So Emily did address that in a question.
that we have a permanent prohibition. So you can have a zoning thing, right? You can overturn a zoning thing. So in the state of Washington.
Would you like me to repeat that here?
Go, sure, ma'am.
I think it would be helpful. I mean, yeah.
So that was raised by one of the council members last week as well. And as noted, while it is described as a permanent prohibition, the council is endowed with certain rights to change those types of policies. And so long as the process of zoning changes that is established by council is followed, that is the one area that council has the prerogative to change prior council's decisions. So unlike constitutional amendments, either at the state or federal level, that require 2/3 of 2/3 the majority, council legislative decisions simply required either a majority or a majority plus one, depending on the mayor, if they veto. And since land use areas is one of the arenas that gets the most attention from potential legal challenges, the ability for applicants to go through due process and have this type of hearing to allow both sides to voice their opinion is critical in making sure that the city is consistently treating all applicants equally.
Okay, now I'm going to move on because that was always the argument. There's a permanent prohibition. So when it first came before, like in 2021, I believe. So that was the argument that council had, was it's just a zoning thing because different applicants had brought it forth. And it was just a zoning thing. And that was the argument of the majority of the council of why they were not willing to change it then, is because the previous council had voted in a permanent prohibition, right? And at that time, there was a public hearing and only one person spoke. So clearly that was something that, at that time, the face of Woodland was, this is what we want. Or more than one person would have showed up. So anywho, so since then, there's been all of this, and you all have had very emotional responses. So a couple of the things I wanted to point out, since the conversation about tax revenue comes up. So I looked, because somebody asked, and I looked up the fiscal year on the state's website. From 2018, the fiscal year 2018 to fiscal year 2024 distributions of cannabis revenue by city. And they list the city of Woodland received in 2022 $643. In 2023, they received $11,695. In 2024, it was $14,777. So that's a grand total. I wrote it on my hand, $27,115 over 2.5 years. Not a whole heck of a lot of tax revenue dollars. I think we would agree that's not a lot, since you just had the budget, and the budget, that wouldn't water Horseshoe Park.
For the fines.
So the fines, $250 a day for not having a city business license, and $25 a day for violating the zoning code.
Yeah. We collected, just so everyone knows, we collected north of $250,000 over the course of that business operating.
That was fine, so.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's
Still 250,000.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is 250,000 is what we collected in fines and penalties. So continue on.
Correct.
Yep.
And so, clerically, I wanted to point out is your ordinance. If you choose to pass it, you might want to put the correct mayor's name at the bottom. It's the one that is linked online. It still shows. Well,
It says Todd Diner on there.
Good, because the one I just clicked still had
It's
Mayor
on there.
Finn.
It's Todd Diner, yeah.
And then another one I wanted to point out. Interestingly enough, I always thought it was weird that nobody from the Liquor Cannabis Board has ever come to speak on this, right? Because there's 80 some odd cities in the state of Washington who have similar rules in place as the city of Woodland. And I always found it weird that we never had anybody as an expert over the last handful of years to speak on that, because council's always had questions, but then it was always under the attorney would be the interpreter, or Mr. Goddard, who's done a really good job of interpreting what zoning and whatnot. Another thing I wanted to point out, outside of the settlement between the applicant and the city that went into effect August 31, 2023, where they entered into a legal settlement with the city to close up shop and go away, never to return.
August 10, 23.
So,
August 10, was it?
so again, that is a sealed agreement. I know that there was a public records request on that. The city did reach out to both parties to make sure that they knew that it was going to go public on that piece there. And that agreement is as long as the
Zoning.
Correct. So I just want to make sure that it, you know, I mean,
That's always been the good part, is that as long as you continually deny, then the legal settlement stands.
100% agree.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then another point I found kind of interesting was, I looked this up this morning. Paradigm LLC, doing business as 20 after for the applicant, their state LLC expired last month. So as of today, they don't even have a state business license. So, I mean, I don't know what that means. I'm just, as a resident, I've always been curious, like, what is the thing? Because this has been Groundhog's Day since 2021. And it's just kind of over and over and over. And interestingly enough, that somebody brought up Councilmember Freimark being on these signs, that he was Mr. Pro-Weed candidate, whereas me, I was on signs as the Antichrist anti-weed candidate. And I never once ever said my opinion, because as a council member, you take an oath to uphold the laws of the city of Woodland. The current law of the city of Woodland has always been, since 2019, a permanent prohibition. So that was the law. That's the law that had to be upheld. You can do the zoning thing. I just kind of feel bad for the applicant, because it seems like a lot of money has been spent to go before planning, to go before council. And I've really never, only once had a conversation with the man, but I don't know what the end, I've always been curious what the end game is. Like, as a resident, I just kind of sit back and I'm like, so what's the end game? Like, I'm not even clear what that is. It's never kind of come up. It's just, it is what it is. And I know people have these passionate comments they want to make about the kids and the whatever, and it's really, or putting it on a ballot for people to vote on. And I kind of feel like in 2019 that council had spent many years renewing every 6 months. Every 6 months was a moratorium. And so the reason they did the permanent one is because they did this every 6 months for years. And Mrs. Johnson would be, she was at a lot of those. So she remembers that like every 6 months they did this, and they got tired of doing it because the result was never going to change. The people that came before council always had the same things to say. And so they did that. And anywho.
So in your closing, can I ask a question to you?
Sure.
Deanna? we can all agree you're a wealth of knowledge here. And I've seen comments and heard you say that this has been discussed, different things, and you know I'm very clear about, hey, put it on a ballot measure. My views is one person. This is about 6,500. And I honestly don't know what 6,500 residents would say. But
They don't vote, that's for sure. Only a
Well, only
tiny
about
piece
30%,
ever
right,
vote,
But-
yeah.
So can I ask you, what do you think, and again, it's all, relative here, but do you think the residents would vote yes or no? I mean, just because you've made comments in the past that said, we know it's been discussed numerous times already. So is it a no or a yes, do you think the residents would say?
So from my personal experience, the issue when this particular applicant, all of this came up, it was never about what was being sold. The people I talked to, business owners that I spoke to, my neighbors, all kinds of people, it was never about what was being sold. Most people really don't care. They did not like the fact that somebody came in, immediately broke the rules, decided they would apply for things after they opened, and would do whatever they wanted. Because we have a lot of businesses in town who played by the rules, who spent a lot of money to play by the rules before they ever opened, instead of, well, we'll figure it out later. Well, you can't do that. And so a lot of people didn't like that aspect of it. I think demographically, if you look at who voter turnout is in our community, historically it has been boomers, the people in the boomer generation. So older folks generally turn out to vote more so than any other demographic. And they are not inclined to sit on Facebook and fight with each other.
It's the same 50 people on Facebook, we know that.
Correct. And so just because you don't hear them doesn't mean they don't have an opinion, right?
And that's why I'm saying, I just didn't know where you were, because personally, myself, again, we all know my wife was the first one who sent in a complaint about 20 after 4 and said,
There you go.
hello. So, I mean, and that's why I'm saying, I don't know where our community would stand on this whole thing. And I know I'm getting into my soapbox here, but I want to live in a community that aligns with the things that I want. And that's why I kind of am at this point, tell me, do my neighbors want this or not want this? And so I just am asking you, do you think it would pass or not, and not to get into a long debate, and I know you're over your time, but just.
One of the things that when there was another applicant and they wanted to go over there where Antidote is, right? Over by Lamaglass. And so I thought, wow, that's really a cool location, right? It's away from everybody. Nobody's going to see it. It's not going to cause a traffic thing. And I thought, oh, okay. So when that conversation came before council, like I was feeling the vibe on that, and it was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see where that's something that people of Woodland could get behind, because it wouldn't be in anybody's faces. Because I've heard those arguments and all these things. They don't want their kids to see it. They don't want whatever. But then, somebody brought up to me, we were having this conversation when they saw this up again. They said, hey, what about that land that the RV place bought, right? So the RV place had bought all of the industrial.
Gabe, we let everyone speak over 5 minutes. So, Gabe, stop.
I could sit down and raise my hand again if that helps. But so the RV place had bought all of this land, and like a year ago, I think it was, they came back before council, maybe 2 years ago, and they asked to have a big portion of that property turned over to have it rezoned for residential. Am I correct in that, Mr. Goddard? Yeah. So they wanted to have that turned over into residential. Well, that property, I believe, butts up to this property, does it not? Okay. So if that became residences, right? So let's say they decide they want to develop that land into housing, and for however many houses in our comprehensive plan, it says you have to have a city park. So then you would now be let's say you, as a body of government, you rezone this space, this one little space. Now you have prohibited the people who own the adjoining land from the ability to develop into a certain amount. We all know we need housing, but for so many houses, we need a city park. And one of these businesses could not be within so many feet of a city park. So then that made me wonder, so what does that say to the people who own that land? Like, what, they may be not even aware that this is on the table because this isn't in their wheelhouse. And so it brings up another conversation, kind of an organic thing that maybe you guys could discuss. And it's just because people know that I'm a nerd and I read municipal code all the time for fun, is asking me those kind of questions because I do know it. And I just think it's a conversation that could be had. Because this is in the planning part of it, and it is zoning, and you guys are working on the comprehensive plan, and so maybe that's a conversation that comes up long before spending taxpayer dollars to put it on a ballot, to have a conversation, you know, to, what was it, like $30K?
Well,
He said
when
he
we
paid
did
for
it
it.
with the other election, it would have been around $20,000.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's,
Didn't he offer
again,
to pay for
so,
it?
I mean, we went back to, and when we had the discussion whether to put it on the ballot, your comment was that we already know what the citizens vote. That's why I
Right.
was asking, are they
Yeah.
gonna vote no or yes?
I mean, because
That was my-
there's
and-
hours of
yes or no
testimony, hours of testimony. You could just compile it into a book.
But it's sort of like social media. It's the
It
same
is.
50 people, it's the same people that come here. So,
And I was always
mean, we could
curious
debate
how
all
many
night.
of the folks actually lived inside the city, who actually pay into the tax base, who would be paying for that election. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So,
anyway, but I appreciate all the work you guys do, and I just think it's kind of Groundhog's Day, and I just feel like at some point, like, yeah, I think it's kind of, it's just weird to keep taking the guy's money over and over again so that you can continually flog the dead horse over and over again with the same passionate pleas about what everybody's passionate about. And I just kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of over, I don't want to come to these anymore. But I will. But anyway, that was what I came to say. I just kind of thought some people maybe don't realize that a body of government had already made it a permanent prohibition, and that was why I was always curious why it was always coming up over and over and over again when it was decided.
But it was never voted on by the people.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fire away, sir.
Yes.
Ms. Holland, August 10th, 2023. Is there anything in that document referred to it or that you'd like to expound upon that you feel that we should know about? Anything relative?
Are we talking about line 66? Where
Anything and everything that you might think
So-
of.
so-
Gabe, let them
This
have
was a legal document. Is there
We have
anything
the
you think we
rules
need
in
to know?
place for a reason, right?
Gabe, that we have dialogue, we have conversation, we allow
Like, if
conversation.
he wants to know
here.
about that document, he
Gabe,
should go read it.
Gabe,
She's not
Gabe.
an expert.
I
on
gave it
code,
to him, so he has a copy.
We allow other questions to come up and people have conversation.
So that's kind of and now I'm gonna get all weird about it. So a lot of people know that I used to come to meetings. I've observed council meetings for like 9 years now because it's something I really enjoy and I love the governmental process. But because I was a sitting council member when this all came up, line 66 says that they admit to harassing a council member. What that meant to me, what that meant for me, what that meant for my family that is not well known, is that there were, and Chief Kelly isn't here to speak on this anymore, credible threats made against me. I had to have a police escort to leave. Gosh, I've had people threaten me in public. I had people follow me home over retail weed. over weed. Like, y'all can grow it and do whatever. I never once was a part of that conversation in 2019. I wasn't a council member. But somehow, Mr. Feed Store guy had a sign about me in front of his building for 6 months. People were driving around with signs about me. There was a whole Facebook group about me. Like, for what? For weed. And so that settlement was kind of very important. A lot of the language in that settlement was very important, because what if I did get reelected? As a council member, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. As a council member, I couldn't say anything because I was beholden to council rules. As a private citizen, it's very freeing that I can now talk about that. I can now talk about that. The one conversation I ever really had with the man was he called my house October 7th, 2021 to offer me money for a campaign I wasn't running. So, like, all these things that I don't know, that I set off in people, for why? For retail weed. And so I appreciate that you asked, because I don't ever talk about it. I'm sitting in the row with a gentleman who showed up at one of the council meetings to stand there and scream in my face, who wore a clown mask. Who wore a clown mask.
So hold on a second, Steve, hold on. But yeah, let's
Who wore
not-
a clown mask, and it was just chaos.
Okay, but, okay, I got, right. Steve, hey,
Exactly.
stop. No.
Excuse
Okay.
me.
Deanna.
Okay,
You're
I'm,
talking to me
no,
now.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay.
And I apologize, and I will exit as soon as this is over, hopefully not to be shanked since I was parked in the back 40. But, anywho,
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Nope, thank you for coming, I do appreciate it.
Anyway,
Okay.
peace out.
Any other comments or questions here on this piece? Mary? Miss Hall? It'll be your
he's
second
already
time, you get
talked.
2 minutes. She passed her 2 minutes for your second.
I just want to say that, you know, when you talk about voting it in, you know, I was against it. I never was for it, but it was voted in. The state voted it in. That was the sad part. It's here. They voted it in. So how you can come up and say, well, most people can't, maybe not, but get the count in town. I would suspect it would go over because it already has. The state voted on it. That's all my comment. But then again, any decision's not the wrong or right to me. It's your decision. You know, it's a tough call.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Miss Hall?
So we've heard a lot of different kinds of comment, and I'm going to bring it back around to kind of an emotional comment about children. We've heard a lot about money, that it might bring in money, and then we heard that no, it really doesn't bring in that much money. Even if it brought in a lot of money, is it worth it? These are our children that we're trying to raise. So I prepared some comments. I'll read most of them because I'm nervous, but I want you to hear. And some of it's a repeat, an underscore of things that have already been said. So here we go. Mayor Deinart, Woodland City Council, good evening. The issue before you tonight is, should Woodland City Council approve a zone change so that drugs can be sold in our town? And I ask you to vote no. I quote this: zoning laws are created for the simple purpose of protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of the people as it relates to land use. At present, Woodland is among the 30 to 40% of Washington cities that are saying no to pot shops. Let's stay lined up with them. Those in the pot shop campaign have said you can't legislate morality and it's up to parents to raise their kids to know right from wrong. That's true. It's very true. And it's also true that raising kids is hard work. You can help parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, by not changing zoning to allow a pot shop with its signs and neon advertisement. It makes buying pot seem normal, acceptable, even attractive. The zone the pot shop salesman is requesting is highway commercial, C2. Highway commercial. Highway commercial. Where school buses and families go by constantly. Picture our town with highway advertising of pot, like McDonald's Golden Arches, high and lifted up. Okay, picture a Woodland classroom of, say, 25 kids. Or picture the 45 to 55 kids that, middle school kids that weekly before school attend FCA. Which of those kids do we want to stumble? Which kid would we want to encourage to think buying pot must be okay? The city council actually went to all the work of changing a city zone just so our town could have a pot shop. The risk is too great. The damage is too precious. So I've been speaking on behalf of children. Pot shop folks say that there are no children allowed in the pot shop. Only those 21 and older. 21 years old. With all due respect, a young man's brain isn't fully developed until he's 25 or maybe older. That's 4 years difference. 4 precious brain development years. Those are the years of the higher level thinking skill. Using pot is brain altering. Altering the brain is the purpose of the drug and the function of the drug. It breaks my heart, but I know that too many of us in this very room have family members that have used pot, precious young men that have used pot and been robbed of their drive and their purpose and even their health. Please, let's keep protecting our town from promoting the sale of drugs. Changing this zone in our city to allow one person to sell pot in our town is a sad act of legislation that does not balance all interests. Mayor Deinard, members of the council, let's make it easier for Woodland citizens to raise healthy kids in this community. Let's lead them not into temptation. Let's let this city council's legacy be that of protecting our children. Let's line up with more than 80 other Washington cities doing that. Please vote no to a zone change for the purpose of selling drugs. Amen.
Any comments or questions for
No, I
Ms.
agree.
Hall? Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Now we will move it into comments. Oh, sorry, Mr. Goddard.
I just wanted to make a clarification for the record. The initiative for the marijuana was in 2012, November of 2012. The city council adopted its first regulations in 2014, and it was WMC 17.50, and marijuana retail sales was prohibited since 2014. What happened in 2019 is a code change came forward as part of our retooling our code program, and it clarified that 17.50 prohibited retail sales, but each of the zoning districts didn't say anything. So we were repeatedly getting applicants who were asking to open pot stores because they looked in the zoning and they didn't see that it was prohibited. So in 2019, that change only simply clarified that this one section of code now matched all of the individual zoning codes. So we didn't actually implement a permanent prohibition. There's only a zoning prohibition that's been in effect since 2014. There is no such thing as a permanent prohibition. I'm not sure where Ms. Holland got that from, but technically zoning is not permanent because property rights are constitutional and zoning rights are a result of case law and Supreme Court interpretations of the Constitution. So even if it's in the Constitution, it would not be permanent. So technically, I just wanted to clarify that there's some nomenclature that isn't quite correct there.
Thank you, sir. With that, questions, comments, dialogue from council?
I'd like to make, I'd like to call the question.
Okay.
Second.
Yep.
Got a second?
So, I have that.
Wait a minute, are we voting on the
Well, they
action
can
to
call the question.
call the question,
Yeah, he
or are
called
we,
the
or are we voting on the agenda
You're
item?
voting on the agenda item. We had called in a question and a second, so we are now voting on the agenda item
Okay.
into place.
Correct.
Can we comment on our vote?
Yeah.
I mean, on our,
Mhm.
on our action?
Yep.
Yeah, so just say no. That's the answer. Just say no.
Okay. So,
Because we're not saying no to the call the question. We're,
correct, you're voting, a
for the-
yes vote says yes, you want to adopt this new ordinance. A no vote is no, you do not want. You
Yes.
are voting yes to approve it, no to deny.
so the answer's simple, just say no.
Correct. You're not voting on whether or not to have a question.
Right, right.
Is that clear to everyone?
Councilmember Hall?
No.
Councilmember Dowdy?
Without a vote of the people, my answer is no.
Councilmember Frymark?
No.
Councilmember Burke?
No.
Councilmember Friend?
With Melissa, without hearing from our citizens, I vote no.
Councilmember Rounds?
No.
Councilmember Houston?
Aye.
With that, it is not passed. Just so we're clear, ordinance number 1548, marijuana retail sales, first reading, does not pass. It has been rejected. Okay, with that, we'll move to agenda item E. Authorize the mayor to sign contract with Humane Society of Cowlitz County for 2025 animal sheltering services. So, yeah, as I was gonna say, any questions or comments on this piece here? One thing I do wanna let the, community know, so Humane Society of Cowlitz County is merging with Clark County. Clark County is a little bit more successful than Cowlitz County. So Cowlitz County, Clark County, this merge, they came and met with Travis and I and Riley and Chief Gibbs one afternoon, and they want to increase the cost. It used to be around $300, those things, and then they wanted to go per capita individual. So we started out with a $35,000 fee. Over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, we kept questioning the data, going back and forth. And if you look at our community, again, social media is not the all end all, but our community is very good about helping one another, finding their pets, If somebody finds a dog, hey, whose pet is this? Or I have a dog over here. Our community is very good. And at the same time, if somebody does take a dog, it's very easy to say, go up there and say, hey, I'm from Woodland. Oh, okay, we'll charge the city of Woodland for that fee. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If you're up Hayes Route, or if you're up Lewis River Road, or if you're down on the bottom, it's easy to say Woodland, but that's not city proper. That's not our responsibility. That's still county. So this is how we worked our way down to this $12,000, and it's one of those things where we're going to require, and the Humane Society is agreeing that they're going to, provide us each month where that person lives. I could say, hey, I live in Woodland, and then find the dog down at the bottoms and say, oh, well, I found it over in, at Walmart, or I found it at my house. So it's going to be a little bit tricky there, but I just want people to know, this is one of those costs that, to me, I agree with having the Humane Society do this, but I struggle for it just to be some costs. And so $12,000 is one of those things where we've really negotiated down to see how we can do the first year. So with that, any other comments or questions from the audience? Ms. Dowdy.
So if we don't use 40 animals, do we get any of that back?
We do not. So I look at it, 40 animals is roughly, one every, week and a half kind of a deal. We looked through what we had so far. They started out with 75 animals. So then when I started looking at the individual names, who they are, I mean, we can identify who people are, where they live, then location. That's how several of us got down to. We thought it was around 45 to 50, and we settled on 40.
And then if we go over 40, do we get charged $300 per extra?
$300 per extra, and that's why we set the processes in place that, hey, we are going to verify each month where these dogs are located and found. Because again, our community does a great job on social media.
Okay. What kind of animals are they? Just dogs, cats, or are they?
Coyotes?
Yeah, coyote or anything else.
They're domesticated animals.
Domesticated.
Domesticated animals.
Okay.
And then real quick, this is already in the budget we approved
Correct.
tonight. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's no comments, I make a motion to approve action item E, authorize the mayor to sign a contract with the Humane Society of Cowlitz County.
Second.
I'll second.
With that, take a vote.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
With that, it is approved. Moving into action item F, authorize the mayor to sign on-call engineering services contract with HHPR. Questions or comments from the community? A little bit of dialogue and conversation on this. The engineer, we used to work with Gibson and Olson. The engineer left and went to HHPR. We do use HHPR for some of our services. This individual, we would like to continue to work. He knows, familiar with our services here. So this here, same rate. And then we are gonna go out to RFQ next year, which will open it all into a whole different ballgame. So this is kind of to get us through parts of next year.
So if we say yes, we're staying with our engineer.
We are still going
No.
to use Gibson, but we're also going to use HHPR, and we're going to use Ryan Walters, who
That's what I meant.
is part of HHPR.
So we will have that, yeah.
Correct, it
continue.
gives us access to Ryan.
And this money is all paid for by the contractors.
It's passed through,
Not us,
correct.
the city, yeah.
Yep.
Pass-through money.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item G, authorize the mayor to sign grant agreement with Transportation Improvement Board for Pacific Avenue Sidewalk. Questions or comments on this? This is the $200,000 grant We've got the $25,000 in the budget. Riley, do you want to walk through what this project is going to entail for the $200,000?
Yes, so on Pacific Avenue, we have mostly sidewalks all the way north to south. There is a small section in front of Napa, a small car lot there on the corner that currently does not have sidewalks. So this TIB grant will allow us to put sidewalks all the way down Pacific. So just a safer route travel for the community. This requires a $49,300 city match, which has already been budgeted for in the 2025 budget.
Yeah, Pacific Avenue is owned by the county, right? Or state? And we're paying for it?
Yes, it's technically an off-ramp and partial on-ramp,
Right.
but we do own the sidewalks.
The whole way?
Correct.
So the sign that says welcome to Woodland?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Councilmember Freimark,
Yay.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
With that, the ayes have it.
Motion to end meeting?
Second.
It is now 9:15. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. Merry Christmas.
Recording stopped.
He's so kind just to excuse surgery
To
like 2 days out of my
even pass it. No, you voted no against it. You voted seven ways.
Actually, I'll probably just.
Go ahead and allow it.